Welcome to another Walter football video. I'm Charlie Campbell, senior draft analyst, the most accurate mock drafter in the world. All right, so before we move on to the 2026 NFL draft, I think it'd be good to do a little recap video on 2025 with going over the draft awards article that I put out just days after the draft. I'll put the link below in the description box so you guys can follow along with that if you want. And also right now we have going up on the sites the rookie forecast, which I really enjoy writing because we spend all year kind of forecasting and mocking and projecting where these guys go, and then all the picks happen, a flurry of activity for 3 days, and then you kind of catch your breath and try and evaluate, well, who went where, who did well, who didn't, that kind of thing. So I think it's good also to kind of break it down team by team. So I do the rookie forecasts. Generally, I try and look at who I think could be a solid starter, who could be a potential bust, who could be a possible boom pick, and who's going to be that solid depth player that could come out of a draft class. And, one of the things that I kind of find irritating about the TV media is just that it seems, everything's positive, every pick is going to work out, and you don't want to prejudge and say, oh, this was a terrible pick, bust all the way. But at the same time, the odds are such that, if you look at, I've had team people tell me that, in the first round, you have a higher success rate. Obviously, these guys are really standouts in terms of height, weight, speed, and what they did in college on tape and whatnot. So there's a lot of easy decisions and easy evaluations in the first round. And then after that, the rubber meets the road for these GMs, and that's where you really need to get some steals, find some good starters after the first round to really build a championship caliber roster. And I've had team people tell me from their own studies and analytics that it's right about 50-50, a little less than 50-50 chance that a second round pick ends up becoming a good starter and gets a second contract with the team that drafted him. So it becomes a 50-50 crapshoot there. Then it's worse in the third round. And then, of course, in the late rounds, it's, like 10%. That's very small that those picks stick and, turn into a starter or player getting a second contract in the NFL. So with that in mind, I think it's good to kind of do some draft awards each year and do the rookie forecasts, say who I think has bust potential, and I always put the previous year picks right there so I hold myself accountable. I'm not memory holing anything, so if I get it wrong, you'll see it right there. You can see some that I was absolutely spot on with in terms of high first round picks or first round picks being bust. So plenty of stuff there to read, and I'll put a link to rookie forecast below as well. So let's get into the draft awards though. All right, so my best value pick for round one, I went with Baltimore Ravens getting Malachi Starks from Georgia. It was a really a big shock to me that he slid out of the top 25. He was considered one of the safest prospects in the class. Just a natural free safety, a guy that can lock down that deep middle of the field. Very tough commodity to find a true center fielder like that. And on top of what he did on tape as a 3-year starter at Georgia in a loaded defense and a loaded secondary, he starts as a freshman. It just speaks volumes about his talent. But then also he was known as like Captain America, like the greatest kid, one source said the kind of kid you'd want your daughter to marry. Just a great presence in the locker room, team leader, great worker, loves football. So I think he was a real steal for the Ravens to get him at 27 and pair him with Kyle Hamilton. The honorable mentions there, I thought, for best value pick in round one, Jihad Campbell to the Eagles. The Falcons picks Jalen Walker and James Pierce, and the Dolphins with Kenneth Grant. All right, best value pick on day two. I thought the best value pick on day two was the Seahawks getting Nick Emanwari, the safety from South Carolina. Emanwari could have gone in the top 20 and teams would not have blinked an eye and said, oh, that's a reach. Everybody loved the skill set. He had multiple seasons of good tape at South Carolina, has the size of a linebacker, can run like a corner, and just really had some huge splash plays last year, especially early in the season with game-changing plays for that Gamecocks defense. So I think he's a great fit in Mike McDonald's defense. Coming from Baltimore, a system that really values that safety position and how important they are in that scheme. And I think that was a great pick for Seattle. Brilliant move in the trade up there by Seahawks GM John Schneider. Some of the honorable mentions there: Elijah Arroyo to the Seahawks, Trey Amos to Washington, the Falcons, Xavier Watts, Ravens, Mike Green, Jets getting Mason Taylor, 49ers, Alfred Collins, Bears getting Luther Burden, and the Cardinals picks of Will Johnson and Jordan Birch. I thought all those were worthy honorable mentions for best value pick on day two. All right, best value pick on day three. I went with Danny Stutzman, the linebacker from Oklahoma, going to the Saints in the fourth round. I think Stutzman's going to outplay this draft slot, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happens early in his pro career. He loves football. This guy just is a football junkie. Excellent instincts, intelligence, toughness, was a rock-solid run defender for multiple years in Oklahoma. I think that he has some limitations, but I think the football character and just the natural football player in him are going to allow him to overcome it, and I think he could be a massive steal for the Saints. The other honorable mentions for day three picks, I thought of Shedeur Sanders, quarterback with the Browns. Eagles getting defensive tackle Ty Robinson. I think he's going to be a great rotational tackle for them. Texans running back Woody Marks. I think he could be a really excellent number two back behind Joe Mixon. And then the Titans with Alec Ayomanor. I thought that was a really steal for Tennessee on day three. All right, best trade. Best trade I have is the Eagles moving up for Jihad Campbell. I thought that was just such a steal for Philadelphia. I mean, multiple team sources told me that they thought Campbell was a top 10 talent and one of the top 10 best prospects in the draft, regardless of position. But the shoulder injury concerns, some teams had concerns about how long a career Campbell was going to have. He could hit himself out of the NFL. That durability, the shoulder, all that caused the slide, in which we had on a Why the Slide series there on him. And I just think that Philadelphia had an elite player fall into their lap. I think he's going to help them day one. I think when you think of the Eagles trying to repeat come playoff time, they're going to have to see some talented runners potentially from like Detroit with that two-headed monster, the Packers with Josh Jacobs, the 49ers with Christian McCaffrey, the Rams, Kyron Williams, the Bucks with Bucky Irving. You know, these other playoff teams, right away, Jihad Campbell's going to make the Eagles a better defense to defend those teams. So I think it's a plug-and-play contributor with Nakobe Dean coming off injury as well. I think this was just a brilliant move by Philadelphia. The other honorable mention there I had was the Falcons trade up for James Pierce, and we'll get more into that move here in a little bit. Biggest reach in round one, I felt it was Jackson Dart with the Giants. So now I know that a lot of the media were, going head over heels for the Giants draft, but I just did not think that Jackson Dart was a worthy first-round pick. Back at Combine and time after that, I surveyed 11 different teams. 10 of them said, absolutely not, no way is that guy a legit first-rounder. I had one GM say they thought he'd be a first-rounder. He didn't say their team would take him, or he thought he just thought he would go in the first round. So he's right about that. But that team needed a quarterback, and they made a move to get a veteran. So that says a lot as well, that that team basically knew they could have Jackson Dart and passed on him. I just think that coming from the Lane Kiffin offense, it's designed to produce a lot of points, a system quarterback. That meltdown performance against Florida was just absolutely damning to me in terms of you had, for Ole Miss, a spot in the college football playoffs on the line, and you lose to an inferior team, and Dart just has a bonanza of interceptions in that game. I think he could be Zach Wilson 2.0 in New York. Of the first round picks, there weren't a lot that screamed horrible reach to me, but the Dart one definitely was the one that I felt the most strongly about that. Other honorable mentions: Josh Connerly to Washington, Derek Harmon in Pittsburgh. I knew a bunch of teams that had both of those guys graded on day 2. But they did go in the 20s, and you're going to have some guys with second-round grades go in the 20s because there aren't 32 players with true first-round grades in most drafts. And so it's worthy of honorable mention, but I don't think it's as bad as Dart. All right, biggest reach on day 2, I went with the Browns and Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd round. That looked like a wasted pick to me of a 3rd round pick. I think Dillon Gabriel as a 3rd round pick, NFL teams, the grading scale for a guy in that range of the draft is called backup to starter. So those are players that teams feel he's going to start out as a backup but will develop into a starter. So you want guys in the 3rd round that could potentially grow into that. And you see good teams, they land good players in the 3rd round. Look at the Lions, for example, with Aleem McNeil, Kirby Joseph. Those were both 3rd round picks. St. Brown, early 4th round pick. You know, you have to be able to hit on some of those picks to develop a great team, and I think the Browns just wasted one. I don't think that Gabriel has the ability to go from backup to starter. I think the physical limitations are too much. I just don't see elite athleticism or elite arm talent or just crazy accuracy. I think he's a backup at best in the NFL, so I think that was a reach and a wasted pick by Cleveland. Other honorable mentions there: Charles Grant with the Raiders, Jamari Caldwell with the Chargers, Isaac Tesla with the Lions, and Dylan Fairchild with the Bengals. All right, best free agent, undrafted free agent signing. This is not a position I typically go with, but I think Carolina got a good kicker in Ryan Fitzgerald from Florida State. And he was perfect last season, didn't miss a field goal all year, but he also showed impressive leg strength and accuracy, hitting on every attempt over 50 yards, including a 59-yarder, and he hit on 91% the previous season. So, I think that's a smart move by Carolina. You get a cheap kicker after the draft and a guy that I think could end up being a solid pro kicker for them. Other, I think, really good honorable mention, undrafted free agent signings, smart moves. Jaguars with Jabbar Muhammad, cornerback. The Raiders, Jaw Joyner, defensive end. The Jets, running back Donovan Edwards. Falcons, cornerback Kobe Bryant. Bengals, center Seth McLaughlin. Vikings, linebacker Chaz Chambliss. And the Eagles, running back Montrell Johnson. All right, worst draft class. So this one, it's always tough. I don't like to do this one as much because these guys haven't played it down yet, so it's very premature. That being said, I did not like what the Vikings did, and it felt reminiscent to me of the 2022 draft for GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. He had the 12th overall pick in that draft. What did he do with the 12th overall pick? He turned it into the Lions getting Jameson Williams. So I thought that was just an all-time blunder of a draft move to help your division rival get an elite explosive receiver with your top 12 pick in the draft. I can't believe, if I was an owner, I would have said no way we are doing this trade. We're not helping Detroit land an elite player like that. They didn't even get a future first-round pick to move down 20 spots in the first round. And then what did they do when they got to 32? They took Lewis Seen, who barely survived his rookie season in Minnesota, barely played before he's cut. They get a second-round pick that in that trade down as well, going from 12 to 32, and they used that on Andrew Booth, a cornerback who was also a bust. So that was just an all-time epic fail of a draft, in my opinion, was the Vikings in 2022. And this year, I thought they definitely did not go about things the way I would have if I were the GM. I think their first round pick, Ohio State guard Donovan Jackson, solid football player. I think he'll be a solid NFL starter. I don't think he's going to be dominant or elite, but I think he'll be a good pro. And I think that not a horrible player. However, I think when you look at that team, they just spent a lot of money on Ryan Kelly and Will Fries, bringing those guys in from the Colts. And now you just added another guard into the mix when your defense really needs help in terms of being ready to go against elite teams in the playoffs. The Vikings defense really could use some young talent in that secondary for Brian Flores when they're going to have to see the Eagles, the Lions, teams like the 49ers, the Rams in the playoffs, of course, all year, even just to get to the playoffs. You look at the passing attacks in their division. So I definitely think this draft was a bit of a missed opportunity. They could have had Malachi Starks, Nicky Manwari in the first round. You could have had a corner like Will Johnson from Michigan, Maxwell Harrison from Kentucky. So I definitely think the Vikings coming out of that draft do not look significantly better than they were going into it. All right, so best draft class. Now, I want to preface this one by saying, so honorable mentions, I had the Eagles, Patriots, Cardinals, Seahawks, and Ravens. I think all those teams had excellent drafts. The other thing about the past winners, every team I've picked for the best draft class made the playoffs within 2 or 3 years of me picking that. So that draft class developed and helped push that team into the playoffs. The only team that I got wrong with that was the Jets. And I'll look here real quickly and see. Okay, I had the Jets get the award in 2022, but obviously that was an excellent draft for them with getting Sauce Gardner, Breece Hall, Jermaine Johnson, was Garrett Wilson. So I mean that was a tremendous draft for New York, but we'll see. Maybe Aaron Glenn will wave a magic wand and the Jets get in the playoffs this year and my streak will stay alive. But within 2-3 years of me picking a team for the best draft class, they've made the playoffs, and that includes some other picks I had, like the Rams last year got in the playoffs, not as bold though, but I picked the Lions in 2023 when everyone was killing them and criticizing the Jahmyr Gibbs pick. I loved that pick. I loved the other picks they made, Jack Campbell, Brian Branch, Sam Laporta, and what happens in that rookie year, those 4 guys helped get the Lions into the NFC Championship game and their first playoff win in 30-some years. And so some other teams that I picked ended up making the playoffs after that, even included the Giants in 2021, the Cowboys in 2020, Washington in 2019. I picked them, then they made the playoffs under Ron Rivera. So you can look through all that. But this year, I gave the best draft class to the Atlanta Falcons. So I thought Atlanta really did a lot to improve their roster through the draft. I think it is a much more potent and dangerous football team because of what they did. So we all know the lack of pass rush has been a problem in Atlanta for years, and they really went after it in this draft, a strong draft for pass rushers and defensive line talent. Nobody expected Jalen Walker to fall to them at pick 15, but he made it there. he gives them a real chess piece to move around in that front seven and get after the quarterback. And then they trade back into the first round to get James Pierce, who I think could end up being a steal. It would not surprise me if he hits the ground running in the NFL and puts up good sack total as a rookie. He's just got natural pass rush ability at 6'5", 240. Two excellent seasons of tape rushing the quarterback in the SEC. In terms of just tape and impressive play on tape, James Pierce was right up there, probably just a notch below Abdul Carter in terms of a pass rusher in this draft class. If it weren't for the character concerns, Pierce probably would have been a top 12 pick. So they give up next year's first rounder, but that's basic. And then moving up from the second to get Pierce, but that's basically like giving up this year's second round pick to get next year's first rounder a year early, which I think makes sense for Atlanta with the drafts they've had and the talent they have on offense and the need to really inject some playmaking and dominant pass rush ability into that defense. So I think those picks were just phenomenal. Then I think they hit on a couple others. I loved Xavier Watts, the Notre Dame safety, just a pure ball hawk. I think he'll be an excellent safety to pair with Jesse Bates. And then they add another rotational one, which I think was a really nice value in Billy Bowman from Oklahoma. After they got Watts, and Bowman I think will be a nice rotational player to go with those guys and provide depth. He was a playmaker for the Sooners, and I think Jack Nelson, even their 7th round pick, a tackle from Wisconsin, could be a nice swing tackle player for Atlanta, swing tackle backup. And you never know, maybe he develops into the replacement for Caleb McGarry, who's in the last year of his contract. So I think the Falcons had the best draft in the NFL. Feel free to disagree with me. You can put your comments below, but the link is there. Link to Rookie Forecast. Check all of that out. I'll be back with you guys soon. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, all that good stuff. You guys take care. Love to all of you. See ya.